Thank you, Jane, and the Alaska Women's Hall of Fame Board of Directors and Nominating Committee. I am very, very honored to be given this wonderful award. I've looked at all of the women who are in this class of 2022, and I am just amazed at all the creative and industrious kinds of things that they've done, and I am very, very humbled by my selection. So I've always wanted to be a nurse. I've always felt it was a noble profession, one that could assist and support and advocate for people during what can sometimes be the most critical and difficult times of theirs and their family's life. I was a fairly new nurse when we moved to Sitka, and I had the opportunity to have discussions with two nurse practitioners who were in the role of practitioner, which was very new to me. And I had an opportunity to talk to them at length about the kind of work that they did, and knew that that was something that if I ever had the opportunity, I wanted to do. So when that opportunity arose, I was able to go to a graduate program and complete that degree, at which point we moved to Anchorage. And there were several things that happened when I moved to Anchorage that actually changed the trajectory, not only of my career, but of my life. It was a privilege for me to be able to work with the Health Aid program. I was hired as an instructor and then became the training coordinator for the program. And I got to work with many Alaska Native American Indian women who worked out in the rural areas and did primary care in their villages. And the work was very intensive. And so I got to know them quite well. And their view of the world and their relationships with people were very different from what I had been raised in. And it really changed how I viewed the world and how I viewed relationships. And I'm very grateful to my many health aid colleagues who helped me with that. And they included people like Esther Curtis, Eleni Tukmalra, Betty Lee, and Eleanor and Barbara McMillan, just to name a few. I also had the opportunity to work with a number of wonderful instructors in the Health Aid program who've remained friends with me for all of these years, including Sharon Peabody, Peggy McMahon, Leslie Fox-Leva, and Rob Burgess. At the same time, I was cast in a new role as a nurse practitioner, and it really was a new role for the profession. We had just had a change in the state laws to allow nurse practitioners to practice independently. We were one of 3 states in the nation at that point. And it was back in 1983 that I started working as a nurse practitioner in Anchorage. And we knew we had a lot of work to do to make the profession credible and to develop the primary care resources that were needed in order to add the ability for people to access care. We needed to be recognized and respected for the work that we did, and it took a lot of work to make that happen. At the time, there were probably only about 40 of us. We now, last year, I looked at the information on nurse practitioners in Alaska, and there were over 1,600 licensed nurse practitioners in the state. So we've moved a long way. During that time, because there were only 40 of us at the time, we knew we had a lot of work to do. And we all, even though we hadn't anticipated it, became very politically active. And we had to give testimony, and we worked with legislators, and other groups in not just hospitals, but in communities to make the profession known. Our communication was kind of interesting. We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have social media. We had a telephone tree. And it really worked well. We enjoyed talking to each other in person, and we were able to set up meetings and work on coordinating activities. And it was just a very exciting and enriching time for all of us. So being a nurse practitioner and moving the profession on became my passion. And it was very important to me to make sure that the profession could move in a very positive direction, both in the state and nationally. So I got involved with our national organization, the American Academy of Nurse Practitioners, in order to help to coordinate the national activities with what was happening in the state, because it was important for us to have that coordination to move the profession along. And I will add that in the US now, there are over 355,000 nurse practitioners practicing in Alaska, or not just Alaska, but the US. And that doesn't include foreign countries. So for me, the natural progression as I continued my clinical practice and other areas as a nurse practitioner was eventually to teach, because once I got the experience that I had, I wanted to share that with the future nurse practitioners who were going to be educated to take over as nurse practitioners and move the profession along. I wanted them to be able to stand on my shoulders and learn from the things that had happened to me, both positive and negative. And I worked with some wonderful faculty at the university who were very talented, including Diane Tarrant, Maureen O'Malley, Kathy Sullivan, and Jill Janke, just to name a few. When I worked with my students, it was very important to mentor them because they needed a lot of support in order to move into this very different position than they had ever had before. Mentoring is very powerful. There's nothing as powerful as someone you trust telling you that you could do something that you're really not sure you can do yourself. So I was very heartened by working with the graduate students and watching them get into strong positions in healthcare, both in their own practices and also in the community. And the natural progression for the university was to work on developing the Doctor of Nursing Practice, the DNP program, which was also new in the profession. There had never been a clinical doctorate before in the profession. So that was something new that we were working on. And that was going on very much so in the lower 48. And I knew we needed to do that for our students too, both for the nurse practitioners and nurses, in order to help them to develop the resources so that they not only could improve their practices, but improve the health of the communities. That DNP took about 8 years to complete. And I was very gratified when our first class graduated in 2017. So throughout my career, I've had many colleagues, many friends who've been supported, and some mentors, including Jane Evanson, who was a mentor during my doctoral program, and Kay Laudenpera, who always was there telling me about the next exciting activity that we just had to get involved with. Those of you who know Kay know her for that. But mostly, I am so appreciative of the support of my family. My husband, Jim, whom we've been married for 54 years this summer, and our 3 sons, Jeff, David, and Mark. They tolerated my absences, they tolerated my travel, and they were supportive of the things that I did, and they've been my rock. And I'm very proud of our sons who have contributed to their communities, and they've really done a lot of good things in their lives. I'm particularly delighted that each of them married wonderful, creative, strong, and independent women. Melissa, Vanessa, and Amanda are now my daughters, and I'm thrilled. And even more to my delight, they presented me with 8 grandchildren to spoil and heavily influence. So Alaska has given me so many opportunities that I would likely not have had I not lived in Alaska. I have so many friends and colleagues, and though I've moved away, I will always consider Alaska my home. Thanks so much to Lynn Hartz for nominating me, and Kay Laudenpera for your constant support. I often told my sons, you want to try to make a place better than when you came. And I hope in a very small way that I might have done that. And I believe that this recognition means that in some ways I've been successful. So once again, thank you so much for this great honor. I will cherish it. Thank you.